Warning: the following program may contain material not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Flight of ducks unknown, our voice begins to rise, breaking through the noise with fire in its eyes. The spirit of adventure burning ever bright. Hold on tight, travelers, it's gonna be alright. Another week burning, halfway to the end. Roll us over, diamonds, and let the tears ascend. Roll us over, diamonds, the night is here. Shatter the silence, conquer all your fear. Roll us over, God, the angels gonna scream. With Diego at the wheel, living out a dream.
It's time to find out with Diego. Let's go. Ooh, yeah.
On this episode of Bonus Overdrive Wednesday, their journey began long ago at Steeds Ridge. From there, we took a sharp turn onto the dirt road tales of horror for us then to find the structure. And now we find ourselves winding up on the other side of the graveyard. Tonight, we welcome back a voice familiar to the darkness, an accomplished author and musician who continues to craft and entertain us with terrifying new stories of dread and horror. What chilling tales await us within the pages of his newest book? Get ready to find out. Joining us is our good friend, musician, and author, Dustin Grammer. Dustin, my friend, welcome back to Bonus Overdrive Wednesday.
Oh, thank you for having me back on, man. You were the master of introductions.
I love doing the intros, and I had a lot to work with because you've done a lot since I first met you now. I think about, 3 years ago through Thomas Markham with Zombie Media.
That's right. Yeah. I think you were the first podcast I ever went on, and it was right after Steeds Ridge. It came out in 2023. So, yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting a little bit older, but we're putting out a lot of content, and I don't want to move the camera. I'll move the camera. It's not really helpful for the listeners, but I do have, if you look on the upper right, an original
Yeah.
Steeds Ridge poster on my studio
Awesome.
wall. Yeah, that's never coming down, brother. Trust me.
Awesome. Thank you.
And then I also have the DVD as well. So for those out there who missed Steeds Ridge, go back a few episodes, learn all about it. And we'll go through Zombie Media. It's streaming somewhere that will definitely let you know. And man, I've seen that you've been very busy lately with, of course, the newest book, The Other Side of the Graveyard. And we're going to get into that in a few seconds here. But you've been doing book signings most of this year. And how many you've done so far? I think 3, right?
Oh, I've been to Second and Charles has been really good to me every time I've had something come out. So all 3 books have landed me in Second and Charles. So this year, the structure came out at the first of the year, so there's that one. Then the other side of the graveyard put me there, and then I just had the library in Fayette County Memorial Library had their first author showcase, and I got to be included in that with a lot of really cool, creative local authors that are close to the area.
Well, the question is then, how did they find you, or did you contact them for that?
I randomly just came across it on Facebook one day. I don't know if somebody had commented, it just somehow I saw it on Facebook and sent them an email. That's how we do things. I think you're the hardest working guy I've ever seen as far as you're just a bloodhound of that sort of thing, tracking people down. I mean, you shoot a lot of people in my direction when I go on podcasts. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I mean, I just troll things, and that's the word to use, because what I do is, here's the secret for those out there, and for you as well. When I interview somebody on the show, when I'm on their Facebook, I see who follows them or who they follow. I just go down the line and see who looks interesting, and I start reaching out to them. Now, I do send out a buttload of emails, And
Right.
sometimes the return is not as many, but after a while, you start developing a network of people, and you get a lot of referrals. So the show runs on referrals and just blind emails, and people do get back to you eventually. And with
That's
you, that's kind of how you did this one, right?
yeah, that's how I got started. It's just a bold approach, and that's a lot of times that's what I'll tell people. When you're timid, you're a little, I don't know if it's insecure, because I'm my biggest critic. Like I will really hate on my work, and I just everything I do, I'm like, this is a bunch of crap. But there's this other aspect of me that's just kind of like, I don't care, man. I'm just gonna try this. I'm gonna send this person an email, and that's what got it all started was connecting with Thomas Markham, trying to shop music tracks because I watched, his documentaries. I watched a bunch of people's documentaries, and I had this copy and paste email, and I was just finding I was going into Facebook and just finding every studio, every director, every writer, and I was just spamming emails or messenger. And man, for like every 20, you probably get like two or three replies. But Thomas was really consistent. And I know I've told that story before on here, but he just answered every question and seemed like every project I had, he had experience in that field. And I'd ask questions, and I ended up, signing on and letting him distribute the movie and publish the books. So just you got to get out there. You got to, if you see something like I'll kind of observe a little bit, see if it kind of lines up with what I'm about and maybe who but I'll just start sending messages like, hey, I'm Dustin. I do this, this, and this. If you're interested in what I'm doing and want me on your show or whatever, just I'm available. That kind of thing. Same with book signings. I just call the place and be like, hey, uh, do y'all let authors come in and do book signings? And Second and Charles, every time they're like, sure, come on down.
And now that you kind of, we'll say you're an experienced author at this point because you have 3 books already published and released, and you're also working on other ones as well. Have you found it easier each year to go ahead and reach out to these locations?
Just really Second and Charles, because that's just now that I've been there enough, I actually know the people who work in there, so that's familiar. But that's kind of my goal this year. I want to keep my head down and get some work done. So I've got like 2 to 3 things on my plate. I'm trying to find the motivation to get in and finish. And then, like, once I have a little bit more of a body of work, I want to really go after some of these art festivals, some of these days in the park, some of these bookstores, that kind of thing. But like I said, I'm my biggest critic. And, like the very first book, Dirt Road Tells a Horror, I just want to go back and overhaul that. I like the stories. I like the stories I told. I just don't like my writing. I see a lot of mistakes that I don't like because I think I was excited, got in a hurry, and it's been like probably 20 something years since I was in a classroom and actually had to write something that made sense.
Well, I mean, as you were writing it, if you were waiting for it to be perfect in your eyes, you would have never released it. Sometimes you just got to write something and release it. It's a good book. Don't underestimate it, but I can understand. I guess, for instance, I'll use me as an example when I wrote my book. And now, similar with you, it's like, why didn't I just do this instead? Or I should have explained it better, but it's out there for everybody to read anyways. And I haven't heard anything bad about Dirt Road Tales of Horror anyway.
Oh, that's cool. I like your book too. I've read it twice.
Oh, thank you.
I just really like it. It was good. It's kind of like your introductions. You kind of have a knack for storytelling and a good setup, real build up. It was good.
I appreciate that. Kind of like the way I write, it's kind of like the way I think. And some experienced writers, I mean, I've been told don't do that. They they take their time and structure things. But like for me, I just like writing how I talk or how I think. Makes it
Yeah.
easier for me. And I will say this: I used to the hell out of a thesaurus because I want to make sure I'm not repeating these words over and over, and I want to sound a little bit smart. Um, I'm not, but I want to sound like I am.
I try to do that too. I try to, it's in the same paragraph or maybe 2 to 3 sentences away. I try not to repeat a word, especially if I'm describing something. I try to find of a different way to say it, so it's not like if it's like a visual thing. If you're looking at the page and you see the word barn, and then you see the word barn again, you know what I mean. Sometimes you
Yeah.
have to, but kind of try to use a little bit of a vocabulary if I can, which oftentimes I have to look it up, a synonym or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I'd rather learn synonyms 'cause I forgot what those mean. But anyway, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, man. It's a lot of fun to write. Yeah, I'm currently working on something, but it's been in that my hard drive for 3.5 months. I haven't touched it yet. I'm afraid to go back, but I will eventually. And
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that too. I'm gonna have to keep bothering you about it, but I know you've been really busy with the show.
yeah, but I don't mind being bothered. You kind of inspire me and motivate me. So we motivate each other
Yeah,
every
you
other
do.
day. And
Yeah, like I think like if I go a couple of days, like one of these messages are gonna come up from you, like, "What'd you work on? Are you working on anything?" And I'm like, "Oh crap, he caught me. I've been playing video games and watching TV."
oh no, sir, we're not doing that. No, that's okay. Sometimes you need that release and escape from
No, it
reality.
helps.
Yeah,
Yeah, you help me a lot though. And it's really good to have you, as a friend.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you too. You motivate me and help me too. And say, what do I like your episode. You say, hey, this episode was good, or you also talk about, you send me sometimes little drafts of your stories, which I think is an honor for me because I read them and then gives me like a little preview of what you're working on, and I never spoil it for myself. I try not to finish the story, but I got to finish it, and but then the books come out. But like I said, we're definitely going to get to the other side of the graveyard. You've done really well as an author for these last couple of years, my friend, and I'm sure a lot of people have asked you this question many times. Do you have any thoughts going back to filmmaking or creating, the very entertaining Terror Tuesdays, man? Those were pretty damn awesome.
Yeah, my kids have actually, especially my daughter, she's really been pushing me on that. Like, Daddy, like when are we gonna do some more Terror Tuesdays? I messed myself up this year with the other side of the graveyard because I gave myself a self-imposed deadline, which it was sensible to be done, have it published before October for Halloween. And I just, man, this book. I'm happy with the stories. I like this one. It was just a struggle to write because I tried to, the stories aren't as short as Dirt Road. I tried to let them breathe because I take some constructive criticism from, like, I'll send you drafts. I send my brother. There's a handful of people like if I'm kind of questioning, does this story suck or does this make sense? There's a few of you I'll send it to and I'll take the critiques back and think, so, one guy, he was like, I like Dirt Road Tales of Horror. He said, but those short stories were really short. So he's like, I kind of like to get to know the characters a little bit. So I wanted to, before, like in the structure, one thing people would say was that I was good at setting the setting up. Like you feel like you're in the room, you can kind of feel like you're in the location. So the challenge for the other side of the graveyard was, can I make realistic characters like people, like can I wanted to work on my characters, I guess, a little bit. And it made it a little easier because there's a lot of the characters in the book. I did the easiest thing I could. I just based it off of people I saw or people I know, characteristics. This person is, like the story about the bar. I was actually in a place on vacation and was just looking around in this, it was a poolside little bar thing. I'm looking at this girl's up singing a song. This really drunk guy is over here slobbering over the table looking at her. I mean, a lot of it just translates right into the book.
And that's the story I told you when I went to visit Massachusetts, and we got a hotel by the harbor, and those fishing vessels were all docked there. And first thing, because it's nighttime, I'm like, a trawler.
Yeah.
These zombies are going to come out in a diving suit because there was like 3 bars right there in the next to the ships, right? Seafood steak restaurants or little clubs here. But no, I was like, wouldn't be something I'm sitting here eating fish and chips and these things come in here and attack me.
Oh yeah. Oh man, fish and chips is hard to beat too. Yeah, and that story, the trawler was not planned. It was not in my outline at all for the other side of the graveyard. That's I have a little notebook and I make little plans. Like I've got notes in my phone and I'll just shoot them out. Like if I want this many stories or if I cut it down, I start making titles and I'm like, I'll work on this, 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 and this. I'll put them in this order. I track which ones I've done drafts on, but the trawler was unexpected. I was on vacation and we were down in Pensacola and the scenery just, man, I was in the place, I was in the mood. I was at the beach, so I just wanted to write a story based off of some things and then of course make it horror. You know, just these ideas showed up, and I went with it.
Kind of similar with, I think, a story on Dirt Road Tales of Horror. They use
Yeah,
a real life event, and you kind of just I want to say it was you heard the music or singing
yeah,
coming
dead
from afar.
flowers.
Yeah,
Yeah, we were on another trip. Yeah, in a cabin for the weekend, and when we got there, it was already dark because we went after work on a Friday. And me and my wife are sitting on the back porch, and I just hear like drums banging in the woods and organ music, like, and I'm like, man, there's either a church somewhere nearby or a revival or there's a cult. And, it was creepy because getting there in the pitch dark, we had no idea what the landscape around us looked like. And there was this little barn in the distance, and you could see the light on it on the outside, but it kept turning on and off, like flickering on and off. And it just looked really eerie. And that inspired that story a little bit. Some in the dog just showing up, scaring us at the door, that kind of thing.
well, it seems every time you go on vacation or out of town, it kind of sparks a horror story, and you start writing.
Yeah,
So keep taking vacations, brother, because
yeah. Maybe
the output's awesome.
I need to sell some books so I can afford them and write more stories based off of vacations.
Oh, I understand that part, man. But so with Dirt Road Tales of Horror, and then I know the structure was a standalone story as well. Now, other side of the graveyard, you're really good about telling stories, horror stories, terrifying stories, creepy stories. You don't go too overboard with the violence. There's no what I call gore porn or anything that's almost too disgusting. Although there is a
Right.
market for that. Other side of the graveyard, a little bit different of a shift in the formula. You kind of go a little more. There's a little more action there compared to the first book, and in the first story, right off the bat, that's the one that got my attention.
Yeah, I was really happy with that first one, especially with I can't spoil it, but some of the elements there that, especially toward the ending, where you're like, it's not as, you can't take it at face value what you're seeing right up front. And that's what I liked about that one. I was actually happy with myself on that one. And the structure, it was supposed to actually be part of this collection, but it just ran a little too long. I don't hate the structure. Of course, there's things I think, yeah, I wish I'd have added a little bit. I would have done this or that. I think it's always going to be like that. But yeah, this one, I definitely, before I had it published, I was looking at all the stories and I'm like, this is almost action horror. There's so many, like, I was trying to count up how many of the stories actually had firearms in them because my brother thinks that's funny, which, most of them are Southern based stories. People in the South have guns, and he's just kind of like, I like how all your characters just, they go get guns and they do things that make sense, like, the first story, for example, she actually calls the police. Most horror movies or whatever, a call to the police doesn't happen because they either don't do it or think about it, or the phone line's always dead or the cell
Right?
phone battery goes out. So just trying to be a little realistic with some of that. Like if I was to have the situation that happened in the first story happen to me, I'd probably try to call the police first and then defend myself till they arrived.
Yeah. I started thinking about I've seen a lot of you and I'm sure we've seen tons of horror movies, and there's always this element with stories. They either show up at the very end when everybody's been done killed and then the bad guy gets killed, the cops get there, and then
Yeah,
the bad guy miraculously you don't see him. Like it's gone, like Jason does or Mike Myers.
yeah. The first Halloween that happens, doesn't it? Like they shoot him and he falls out of the window and then
You know,
he's
you see,
gone.
now you see him, now you don't. Or you got this poor deputy sheriff comes into town and starts checking things out. He gets whacked.
Yeah,
So my first thing for me kind of reminded me of things that happened to me. The first thing I went to, I'll tell everybody, the first thing I went to was for my gun too. But there's some dangers to that. And if something's weird happening in your house, let's say paranormal, a gun's not really going to help you anyway.
no, no, not
Um,
at all, not at all. And you got, yeah, like you said, you got to be really careful with that.
yeah, and then
Anyway, anyway,
yeah, the legality of it. We know how that goes, and because you stick going back to the southern style settings of your works, have you looked into challenging yourself? Not that you need to. Though I'm not trying to be giving unsolicited opinions. Would you consider doing a story outside of a southern environment?
yeah. I'm actually really challenging myself with that right now, and I started that story last night. I have a set of notes. Actually, the next two projects I want to work on will probably not be in the South. Maybe in the second one, I want to do that set of Gothic stories. Maybe a couple of them may they're going to be Gothic, so they're going to be period pieces. So the South and certain centuries wasn't developed yet, so it'd have to be somewhere like New England or Virginia. May sneak in there a little bit. This one I'm working on now, I'm trying to shoot for Scotland actually in the 1930s. That's my most recent, so it's taking me a little while to get going because I'm doing a ton of research to be accurate with their, the 1930s agriculture there, the kind of like flora and fauna that grows, or trying to be a little accurate with that. It just and the way the story is going to be told, it makes sense to be there. It's I've got it all mapped out. I just got to start doing it now. And there's a couple of things I got to figure out which route I want to take. But I know what it's about and I know how I want it to end. I just have to do the work and get there. And it's going to be kind of like the structure. I want to be a standalone.
So, if you don't mind me asking, what drew you to the changing locations to Scotland, and what is it about that time period or that country that kind of drew you into wanting to write about it?
Man, the funniest thing about it is I wanted to use a dog. I wanted a boy and his dog companionship type thing, but I wanted the dog. I have no idea why I thought of this. I wanted the dog to be named Tutankhamun, like King Tut. So I had to look at. I started thinking about it, and I was like, "Holy crap!" Like everybody hasn't always just known that name. So I had to look up when that discovery happened, which was 1922-ish, maybe somewhere around there. So I gave myself a little window there. Also, the boy's father is a World War One veteran. He's a survivor of World War One, so I had to pace out. When would Dad have had time to get home, uh, make a family? This boy, at this certain age, so it kind of put it there. And then some of the folklore type stuff I wanted to use, just placed it how and where it's going to be. Um, just I did a little studying around because I could have used Germany or East Europe or somewhere else, and I just settled on the UK and Scotland for this one because it's sheep farming and stuff like that, the agriculture, the people, that the way I wanted to tell the story. You need some creepy, boggy woods and some mountains and green fields and that kind of thing.
And for this to prepare yourself to write about them, I know you're doing the actual research in the history of the country in that time period. There's a lot to it. It's a lot of hard work. What other things are you doing to get you in this mood, in a mood of Scottish mood? Are you listening to Scottish music? Are you having some of the Scottish? They have whiskey there, right?
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure they do. Man, my brother is funny because I literally probably like the day, at least 2 days before I even really started to make notes on this idea, I was talking about sticking to the South, and we are talking about like British writers. I like to listen to a lot of Victorian age stories, classic ghost stories, and I follow, I listen to this channel, and it's an English guy. He tells these really cool stories, and a lot of them from like the 1800s and stuff. And I was like, man, I love that. I'd kind of like to do something similar to it. I said, but that's so far out of my element. I don't think I can handle that, or I'm going to screw it up. And I told my brother, I said, I want to do that, but I can't. Like, I just need to stick to what I know and stick it in the South. And then, like 2 days later, I'm talking to him. I'm like, when I said I wasn't going to do that, I said, but for some reason now I am. And yeah, I watch videos. Like I said, I'll listen to those stories. I find stuff. I actually have some Scottish books here, Scottish ghost stories, Scottish uh, horror books, and I'll read through some of that. And it's not necessarily that the story itself and the outcome and everything just had to be Scottish, but I need to. I don't know, and I'm still going to probably mess it up because I don't live there, and I'm going to do my best. I've done a lot of research.
I'm sure you do a fine job, man. With the way you're going so far, it'll be a very successful book, to say the least. Now, going back to the other side of the graveyard, and I know Zombie Media is the publisher for that. Thomas Markham
That's right.
does a great job of everything. He's a great guy.
He does. Yeah, yeah. He's real fun to talk to. Also,
Yeah,
I
he'll always
talked to him a little bit this afternoon, actually.
see. He'll always return texts or a call. That's the good thing about him. And I was like, man, am I bothering him? I know he's always busy. He's got all these other publishers and these movies he's releasing, but he's always good about returning messages. Now, go into this book with no spoilers. Some of my favorite stories in this book. What kind of creatures can the readers expect to read about in this one?
And the other side of the graveyard, they're definitely human villains, uh, ghosts, undead of various types, cryptids of a couple of different types, uh, natural, nature entities, that kind of thing. I try to keep a little bit of a variety. There's a little bit of a folk type element to one of the stories from Ireland, that kind of thing. So I try not to repeat. Now, just about every book that I've written so far, besides the structure, because it's kind of a standalone and I can't spoil much about it, but I always try to include at least one Bigfoot story somewhere, of course. Road had two, and this one has one.
Yeah, in this one, you're not lying. It's a little more action packed.
Yeah,
Is it, I find it to be unexpected on some things, which is good because now you're not people are not people might be accustomed to a certain style of what you're doing, but then you surprise them, and then you have this scene, and you have that scene, and then the blood spills. It's great. You're doing good with that, and I can't wait for the next book that you're working on. And I mean, we all know you've been on the show plenty of times. People know about your musical abilities. Have you been doing anything with that lately? I know you jam every once in a while, but
yeah, that's about it. I've picked up the acoustic guitar a little bit, and I just kind of picked around on it, realized I've gotten really rusty lately, so I made sure to pick it up a little more over the last couple of weeks and kind of just not play a whole lot. If anything, it makes sense. Just kind of do some runs up and down the strings and form up some chords and try to pick them together. And I want to get back into that one day. And I know it's going to be a season where it's going to show back up, and I just need to upgrade my technology. Everything I've got now is out of dated. Stuff that has hard drives or they're full, they're out of space, and like the desktop thing I was using has the hard drive. It's actually built into the machine, so there's not much you can do about that. I need to make some upgrades to do recording, and other than that, I just maybe I'll make some reels or something. Wait, I did. No, I replayed a reel of playing Jimi Hendrix the other day that I found while I was looking through my phone, but nothing new.
Yeah, and speaking of reels, my acting debut was in one of your Terror Tuesdays last year. I think I did all right.
Yeah, you did really good. The News Acre, gorilla, Goober the gorilla had escaped from the
Yeah, he
zoo.
escaped.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that was a hoot to do, man. I had a lot of fun with that one. I really appreciate you including me in that because
yeah. Well, I played
I was
that was the character you liked too, so I made sure to bring him back. The really cocky, like boss man with the hat, the little fedora type hat.
yeah, man,
Yeah, we
cracks
got to
me up
get that.
every time.
Yeah, if I would have did them this year, I wanted to include you again. But my daughter's getting to the age where she's really interested. She always puts that goblin mask on now because that guy told me they didn't do ghosts and goblins. It's kind of funny. Little
Oh,
grown
okay.
up.
She's gonna show him something.
Yeah.
No, that's great stuff. With there's a lot of history to that. Now, the reason I asked about music because every once in a while I like to throw the kind of weird questions in here, but with your new book, The Other Side of the Graveyard, if you were to put like some sort of soundtrack to that book, and I know there's different stories in there, but what kind of music would you use for the ambiance or the spirit of this book?
Well, the story stakeholder actually mentions docking a little bit. So there's some hair metal there. I'm gonna think. And actually, Rustwire is blues based. He's a blues man, so old Mississippi Delta blues music, some '80s hair metal, and then of course, just good classic country picking would probably fit in nice with some of these stories.
Yeah, and then you mentioned Delta Blues. I can't believe I forgot the name of this guy from the 1920s, I think, 30s or 40s. So the story goes, he was a less than great guitar player. He left his town. I don't know how many years later or months he came back being one of the best blues players ever. Some say that he sold his soul to the devil in
Yeah,
order to
Robert
learn.
Johnson.
Is that Robert Johnson?
Yeah, yeah, he met at the crossroads, or so the legend goes. Met
Yeah,
the devil.
yeah. I think he had a few albums. One of them was King of the Delta Blues. I think it was called the one release. It might have been a best of. I don't know much about blues, but when you hear that, it's very haunting sounding. So there might be something to that deal, man.
Yeah, it might be. I've recently even thought I was listening to some stuff the other night. Jeff Healey and Stevie Ray Vaughan, and some Muddy Waters and all that. And I was like, if I ever had a band again, because when I was in a band, we did play a little bit of blues, and it was really fun. I thought it would be fun just to have just a dirty, raw blues band, really. Yeah, I don't have enough time to commit to that right now, but man, that would be fun to do.
Well, with all this writing you've been doing and telling me about, I can see why you don't have the time. So, so now, which begs the question now for the listeners of Bonus Overdrive Wednesday, our friends out there that want to get a copy of your book, where can they go find out?
Oh, they're all on Amazon, Amazon.com.
And then published through Zombie Media, and they can also. Well, you got any book signings coming up next year?
I'm gonna shoot for some things. I actually got accepted into that main horror con. You had to apply. They just did the first one this year, and I think it was a big success. And I applied for it and got accepted. With that guy, he's Adam's client with Historically Haunted. So I got to get some things in order, but I'm hopefully, God willing, I'll be able to make it to Maine next September and attend that. I like to travel anyway, so uh, that's something. If I start planning for it now, I should have my ducks in a row by the time that comes around.
No, by the time you get back from that trip, you'll probably have a few more horror stories written down because I know everywhere you go, something happens.
Oh yeah, yeah, there'll be probably a good Maine story by the time that happens.
I hope so, man. So when I bring you back in 2026, we'll talk about your main stories, and you'll probably have 2 more books out by then. I'd love to have you back, and we'll chat about it. And next time, I promise we'll do the normal versus who on our favorite rock bands and metal bands and see how we can do next time.
Yeah, I was trying to think of where you would have gone with it this time. It was like I was about to be really unprepared for that. Just caught off guard.
That's all right. I was unprepared to come up with the questions anyway, but we'll definitely talk offline about that, my friend. I appreciate you being on Bonus Overdrive Wednesday, and I'll see you again next year.
All content on this broadcast is a property of Diego the Podcaster and is served directly from our servers with no modification, redirects, or rehosting. All celebrity impersonators are paid performers. The impersonated celebrities do not endorse or promote any views or opinions expressed by our guests, Diego the Podcaster, or Bonus Overdrive Wednesday. The information shared on Bonus Overdrive Wednesday is provided on an as-is basis, with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.